All right. Well, welcome to our Monday night training. Thank you guys for being flexible. We had our last couple trainings on Wednesdays because of just the chaos of, holidays and all that good stuff and traveling. So thank you for being flexible. But I'm actually really glad to be back on Monday. I really like having our trainings today. I feel like it's a great way to start the week with some education, with some inspiration and just encouragement. I think it's a great way to just kick off the week and go in with this kind of mindset. So, yay, I'm excited to be back on Monday. So, with that, let's jump right into our training. I'm actually pretty excited about this one. To be honest, I actually got this idea from another coach of my another friend that's a coach as well. I thought, what a wonderful idea. So basically, I know it's January. So when you look at what the most common New Year's resolutions most Americans have, number one is get healthy, and two is lose weight. And sometimes those are intertwined. They are kind of the same thing. So I thought, since that's one of the most common goals that people have, why not outline how I would do that? I'm a nutrition coach, right? This is what I do. So what if I outline those exact steps? I think that's amazing. I think most people think that when it comes to losing weight, you just need to eat less and exercise more, right? That's the common knowledge, or that's what everybody feels like. Well, that's all you need to do. And I'm not here to say that's wrong. You absolutely need less energy coming in than going out in order to lose weight. But that's such a small piece of the puzzle. So I thought, let's just unravel it all, or I should say, unveil it all. What does the process really look like? What are all the things that we would do? Yes, we'll be in a deficit at some point. That's important, but there's way more to the process than that. So if you've been following me for any time, or you're working with me, I know sometimes my clients come on here. A lot of this is going to sound familiar, and you know that, like, I don't just preach, just eat less and move more. In fact, I really don't like the two of those combined. I think that's like basically you're setting yourself up for misery when you're going to eat less and exercise more. So this should sound familiar, again, if you've been following my work or are working with me, but I think it's important to hear and just see, like, the whole process, like, lined out. What are all the things that I would do in order to lose 20 pounds in a year? So let's go through the whole list. Now, before I jump in, I want to just make one little caveat that depending on how much weight you have to lose, that's really what's really going to determine your timeline. So the leaner you are, or the closer you are to an appropriate healthy weight, actually the harder it gets to lose weight. If you've got 50, 60, 100 plus pounds to lose, those first 20 pounds can come off actually quite easily. So just keep that in mind, that we all are going to bring something unique to the table in terms of our own variables, as well as like how much weight, right? So that's really relative. I'm just going to really outline a general idea that will apply to everybody, no matter how much you have to lose, but the timeline will be different for everybody. And that's the part too that I don't see a whole lot of out in this space, is that we don't individualize and take into consideration your history, your lifestyle, and anything that you've tried in the past that has contributed to where you're at. So, all right, just a little caveat there. So, all right, let's go through this step by step. What would I do if I wanted to lose 20 pounds this year? And I'm going to start with number one. And I'm really honest, I'm not not trying to sell you here, but I would hire a coach. That's talking as a nutrition coach myself. And here's why: I have to take myself out of the equation. I will be biased. I'm going to be really, really honest that it gets really easy, and it's a slippery slope for me to make exceptions and think that I'm special and that I don't have to do that. And I don't have to have that much protein, do I? And so, like, if I really was serious about losing 20 pounds and I wanted to do it in the most efficient way and a healthy way, then I would just hire somebody to be an objective set of eyes, to be alongside me this this journey to watch my data and to take me again out of the equation, and to be able to call me out, and create that accountability that most of us need. I mean, I get on calls all the time with people, looking to work with me, and number one thing people ask for is accountability. And so knowing that you need that is important. And quite honestly, too, a financial investment always helps speed that up, because now you're invested with your money, and you have this outer accountability. So that really is the number one thing I would do. And I have hired coaches, and those are when I've gotten my best results, is I've had somebody else guiding me through the path. Okay, but let's keep going, because I want to outline what the process actually looks like. But I want to just put that out there. That's probably the fastest and best way to actually get your results, is have somebody walk you through now the process I'm going to walk through, or I'm going to talk about. So number one, you have to start with, where are you starting at? What is your current status? And there's three things I like to look at, or I would look at. Again, I'm going to say this is what I'm doing. And I'm going to look at my metabolism. So what shape is my metabolism in? What's my lifestyle look like right now? And then where is my mindset? And within mindset too, I want to be really conscious of, am I even in the space to do this? Okay. So three things I'm going to start out with just assessing. So how do we do each of those pieces? How do we assess metabolism, lifestyle, mindset? So metabolism, this is a function of looking at, number one, my intake. So I want you to think I always like to, compare this to money. So I need to get a sense of am I even bringing in enough, energy to sustain my current weight? Or am I overeating for my current weight? So I would start literally with just tracking honestly for a week. Don't change anything. Just track what the heck am I eating right now? What kind of food? How much am I eating? How many times do I eat a day? Am I snacking a lot? How much veggie am I getting in? Looking at quality, quantity, and even just frequency of meals. So, I mean, I just need to get a sense of where I'm at in this whole spectrum, of nutrition. So I would just take a week and I would just track everything. So if you're a client, that was literally the first thing I asked you to do, is go out, track everything you're eating for a week, to give me a sense of what are we working with here. And then I would compare that to an assumed maintenance. So I would just jump on the internet and find some calculator that would tell me how many calories I should be eating, not for a deficit, just maintenance, to just sustain me as I am. Now, those numbers won't be perfect, but they'll give me at least a ballpark, right? So for example, if it tells me my maintenance is 2,100 calories, I do my tracking for a week and I find out, I'm only eating, let's say 1,800 calories. Okay, well, that's not horribly far off. It's 300 calories off. Doesn't sound too bad, but think about it like this. If I'm taking in 1,800, I really need 2,100 over the course of a week. I'm losing 300 calories every day. 300 times 7, that's 2,100 calories I'm not taking in. That's 2,100 calories of energy that my body is not getting and still having to perform and still functioning. So think about money in terms of, if your basic needs require $2,100 a month, let's say, and you're only bringing in 1,800, you're not making it, right? You're close. I mean, you're $300 off, but you're not making it. You have to make some cuts somewhere. There's going to be some compensation happening. You're going to give up something in order to make those bills happen. Or, you get into debt, right? Same idea. If we're not bringing in enough, we're in debt, and the body will adjust. It will make those cuts. It's going to make adjustments based on the energy coming in. So even if you're close, coming in, 300-400 calories under, that's going to make some, that you're going to see repercussions of that within the functioning of the body. So I'm going to take an honest look at where I'm at and figure out, am I under eating? Am I overeating? And if I need to lose 20 pounds, most likely the third option, me eating appropriately, is not happening. So I'm going to figure out which end of the spectrum that's on. One of my very first trainings was on the calorie gap, and how stressful that is on the body. So you can go back. I think that was one of the first one or two that I did, and you can look at that. But I'm going to look at that very, very first. I have to understand my starting point in terms of like how much I'm taking in and like how far away am I from where I should be at my current weight, whatever that is. And then I'm going to spend some time closing that gap. So most clients do come to me under eating. So if that's the case, then I'm going to very methodically start to increase how much I'm eating until I get close to what my assumed maintenance would be. I would like that to be a slower process because you don't want to just all of a sudden start eating a ton of food. The body can do a lot of crazy things. And so I would do that very slowly and ramp that up. Right. So I'd be looking at the scale and I would be taking measurements just to make sure I'm on track and that I'm not overfeeding myself at that point. On the other hand, if I'm overeating, then I'm going to go ahead and start cutting back to my appropriate amount of food I should be taking in. Could be a little more aggressive on that side if we're overeating. That's something I'd want to look at. Well, how far off am I? If I'm like overeating 500 calories every day, well, maybe I start reducing by 250, right? So I'm not just completely taking a bunch of food off the table right away. Okay. So that's number one. I'm assessing metabolism in terms of like, how much stress am I putting on the metabolism by either under eating or overeating? And then I would start closing that gap slowly. And ultimately, once I got to close to my assumed maintenance, I'd stay there for about 4 weeks. Because think about it. If you're like building and eating more and more to get closer to your maintenance, and then as soon as you get there, you just immediately go into a deficit, you could see where that could be not a great signal to send to the body. Like, wait, we just got to this place where we're getting enough food and now you're taking food away. So you want to sit there. And I like to see people sit there for a good 4 weeks just to get consistent and to send a really strong signal that we're okay. We're getting in enough food. I mean, honestly, we could probably sit there a lot longer because I mean, quite honestly, the longer actually we can sit there, the better in terms of sending a really nice, strong signal to the body. Okay. So metabolism, I've assessed, I know my gap and I know my plan to go ahead and close that gap. And I know I'm going to sit there probably for about 4 weeks. Second thing we said, I'm going to go ahead and look at is then my lifestyle, which I call biofeedback. You know, how is my body actually managing and doing? I know the stress I've put on my metabolism based on food intake, but what about my biofeedback? So those are things like your hunger, cravings, mood, energy, sleep, stress, digestion, recovery, hormones, like all that stuff is a way your body talks to you and tells you, hey, things are great, or yeah, we need some attention. Those things should be great. Hunger should be controllable. You shouldn't have many cravings. Mood should be fairly even most of the time. Energy should be, high in the morning, and, it can taper off during the day, but it still should be quite even throughout the day. Sleep should be good. We should be able to, fall asleep at appropriate times. We should be able to stay asleep, getting into that deep sleep. Stress should be manageable. All those things actually should be in a good place. And when they're not, that's a red flag, like, hey, there's something wrong there. And so I take a look at those things and I'd evaluate, okay, where are all of these metrics? If you're a client, I have you actually rate those every single day because I want you and I want myself to be able to take a look at, okay, where's the body at? What's the body telling us in terms of, yay, we're heading in the right direction, or nope, we got some work to do. Here's what's really nice. As I work on number one, the metabolism, closing that gap, generally, as we start to eat an appropriate amount for us, our biofeedback starts to improve. It's really cool how that works, right? When we start to feed ourselves appropriately, hunger starts to get managed, cravings start to decrease, mood starts to stabilize, all that good stuff. So those two actually work hand in hand. So basically, I'd spend some time as I'm, making sure intake is appropriate. I would be monitoring my lifestyle and doing whatever I needed to in order to bring those things into a good spot. So I have, let's say, for example, my clients rate on a scale of 1 to 10. So I say, we're really looking to get most of our biofeedback back to like an 8 or higher. And so then we start implementing, okay, what do we need to do in order to get that to happen? So, hunger, cravings, mood, even energy to a degree is going to get impacted, like I said, by our food intake. But some stuff like sleep, that's outside of nutrition, although some nutrition can help. But for some of us, we just need to go to bed earlier, or we need a better wind down routine. Or we need a better morning routine. Maybe we need to like get some sunlight right away to just help wake us up, or even set our circadian rhythms, meaning that we're actually like getting tired at the right time and waking at the right time. So some of that actually is a function of our actual lifestyle, not necessarily food. So stress management too. That's something that some people just need to take that extra step to incorporate. So we'll spend some time basically getting our biofeedback as close to optimal as possible. Because if we think about what we're about to do, the deficit, we're about to take on a stress. And so we're basically preparing the body to be able to do that. So that's lifestyle. The last thing I said is I want to assess my mindset. So am I actually in a good space in terms of food? And so if you think about it, we're about to go into a deficit. We are going to restrict to some degree. We're not going to defy the laws of thermodynamics, right? Less energy has to come in. So there's going to be a piece of restriction happening there. So going into that, where is my mind? Do I exhibit some of the following behaviors? Do I have a tendency to binge and restrict? Do I have a fear of certain foods? Right? Am I like fat phobic? I don't want to take in too much fat, excuse me. Or am I afraid of carbs? Right? Am I in a space where like food scares me? Do I exhibit all or nothing thinking, where I don't have this ability to have imperfect days and I completely like sabotage my results? And last, can I moderate fun food? Because here's the thing. You're not going to eat perfectly on your diet. And we should be able to still enjoy, let's say, a piece of cake or a glass of wine. Obviously, we're going to like decrease the amount of those foods because they're not going to help us lose weight. But we cannot think we're going to go into a deficit not having that stuff at all, or that it's not going to be presented to us. So do we have a place, or do we have a mindset where we're in a place where we can moderate that, where we can have, let's say, half a piece of cake or just one glass of wine? Are we in a place where that's not something that is difficult for us? We can manage that, right? And if not, then we need to really rethink before we go into this restrictive mode. And that's important because, again, we're going to restrict to a degree in the deficit. And so we need to be able to make sure mentally we're prepared for that. And quite honestly, I like to say, like, you might not be, and that's totally okay. It's okay to say, like, you know what, I'm not really in a great space. I need to work on my relationship with food, or I'm like really stressed out right now. Maybe I should not take on additional, stress, with a diet right now. And that's absolutely important that we have that self-awareness to be able to do that. The last piece, and I should have actually put this under lifestyle, is like, do I have the skills to go into a deficit? Meaning, do I know how to track accurately? Because if I'm not tracking accurately, that's going to be a disaster. Do I have enough food quality in the diet? Because you're going to really want to rely on foods that are going to help you stay full, which are usually more whole, unprocessed foods, so like veggies, fruits, lean meats, food that's not packaged. So do I have that food quality there? Do I have skills to meal prep? Because you're going to have to do some kind of preparation. Doesn't mean you're eating all Tupperware type food, but do you have the ability to pre-plan? And then do you have convenience ideas? Because life gets crazy and we have to just assume that was last week's training was, things are going to go wrong. And like, do you have a backup plan? So do you have convenience foods and those ideas ready to go? Okay. Now, once I had my metabolism in a good place, meaning I'm intaking an appropriate amount and I've sat there for 4 weeks. Once lifestyle is all set up, my biofeedback's coming great, my hunger, cravings, mood, energy, sleep, stress, that's all well regulated, and mindset and my skills are in place. Now we can go into a deficit. Notice how much work that is, right? That's the piece that I get kind of frustrated with the diet industry, is that they just want to go to what I'm about to talk about, the deficit. I don't want to take the time. And I get it. It's a lot. It's not fun, and it takes work and it takes effort. But if you'd actually like your results to stick, and for this to not be something that you're doing over and over, and something that you fail and try again, and you're constantly on and off this cycle, then it's going to take some preparation, and that's okay. And I think it's important to know that going into the process. So, okay, all our ducks in a row. We assessed, we got ourselves prepared. Now we can go into a deficit. So let's talk about what that looks like. I think most of us just think, oh, well, it just means I need to eat less, right? And exercise more. No. Yes, we do want to go into a deficit, but let's be intentional about that deficit. Let's make it a modest deficit. I like to set people at about 20%, meaning we deduct about 20% of their calories. And see how the body responds. Everybody responds differently. And so we may have to get a little more aggressive or less aggressive if we're losing too much weight, but we're going to start with a modest deficit. A lot of times this doesn't work for everybody, but if you want a simple calculation, take your weight, multiply it by 12. That should be a modest deficit. You can even multiply even down to 10. So like if you weigh 130 times 10 would be 1,300. That would start getting into a little more aggressive. So somewhere between 10 and 12, I like to start at 12 to just get a sense of like, how does the body respond? Again, that's about a 20%. It depends, it's relative, but it's a good starting point to take a look at. Okay, so I'm going to put myself in a modest deficit and just see how the body responds. Second, I have to basically focus on foods that are going to keep me full. So if you're, if you've been in my orbit at all, number one, what I'm going to say, protein. We need enough protein. Not only is that going to help keep us full, but we want to retain as much muscle as possible. So this actually ties into being in a modest deficit. We don't want the deficit to be too aggressive, because what starts to happen is we start to burn muscle in the process. And what ends up happening is if you burn muscle as a way of weight loss, and then at the end, you're unable to sustain, and then, my light went out. Sorry. And you gain the weight back, you actually end up with a worse body composition. Because think of that. You lost muscle in the process because you were too aggressive, and then you put back weight, fat. So now you have more fat mass on your body. And this actually is what starts that cycle of like people just like start eating less and less and less because their body composition is getting worse and worse and worse. So make sure that deficit is modest. Make sure protein stays at a nice high level. So 0.8 actually per pound of body weight, up to 1 gram per pound of body weight. And again, that's going to be relative to how much you currently weigh. So make sure you're getting in enough protein so you preserve muscle, so that we're actually just burning fat and holding on to muscle during this process. Lots of fiber. Fiber is going to keep you full. It's also going to keep your gut nice and happy, because gut issues can start to happen when you're dieting because there's just less opportunity for fiber to come in. Fiber is what feeds the good bacteria in your gut. And so if we just make a nice concerted effort to make sure enough fiber is coming in, we'll stay full, like I said, and then also hopefully help the gut not get too out of whack. And then stay hydrated. At least half your body weight in water per day is a great goal. And those three things are going to keep you nice and full. So enough protein, enough fiber, and then enough water to keep you hydrated. Okay. So we're in a modest deficit. We're focusing on the things that are going to keep us full. Third, we're going to really look at movement. So there's 2 ways that I'm going to use the lever of exercise. One is through movement, which most of you probably know my favorite movement is steps. And that's because it's quantifiable and it's a way that keeps you off the couch, doesn't require skill. Anybody can do it. And it's not stressful on the body. We're already in a stressful state, right? Because we're in a deficit. So we want to find ways to be active that are not going to be stressful on the body, which in turn will not increase hunger, right? We're already going to be in a deficit. So we don't want to make it worse by tons and tons of intense workouts that are really just going to drive hunger up, meaning it's going to be harder to stay in that deficit, right? So lots of movement At this point, I would then say my goal would be 10,000 steps a day, where for someone who's not trying to lose weight, just maintaining, I think aiming for 8,000 or more is good. But now that we're in a deficit, let's bump that to 10,000. And in fact, I'd probably put a range of like 10 to 12,000 steps a day. And then the other piece of the movement would be strength training. And why? Let's go back to that. We don't want to lose muscle. We don't want to be losing muscle at the, just to say we lost weight. We're doing ourselves no favors. And especially if, we ended up, which we're not going to, but we ended up gaining more weight on the backside, right? We need to retain as much muscle as possible. Now, you're not going to build a ton of muscle in a deficit. In fact, you're not really going to. What you're trying to do is just hold on to what you have. So I would make it a point to strength train 2 to 4 times a week, 3 being, I think, the sweet spot, but sometimes some weeks are probably going to look like 2 times. Some might actually, I get in 4 workouts. So 2 to 4 strength training. Really the goal is to retain that muscle, right? I want to send the signal like, hey, I still need these muscles because I'm still going to pick up heavy things. So don't burn that, burn the fat. 5th, sleep. Gosh, if I could actually boil this whole thing down, I'd be like, be in an appropriate deficit and sleep. Excuse me. Sleep is going to really be the one like lever that, like, if we can't push the sleep lever, it's really going to hold us back. So 7 to 8 hours is really minimum of what we're going to need, especially in that fat loss phase. When we are not getting in enough sleep, we are going to be hungry. Cravings are going to be up. Mood is going to be all over the place. Energy, obviously, down. All that stuff is just going to make this process much, much harder. And the body's not going to be happy about it. So get in those Z's. You need them, especially in a fat loss phase. And for all of that, I would also still be watching my biofeedback. So during this time, it would be important to keep an eye on all of those things, because at some point, we're going to have to exit this deficit. And I think that's the next piece. And the next important part is that we have to have an exit plan. It's really important that we don't just go into the deficit and just stay there indefinitely. So it's good to have a plan and make sure it's appropriate to you, and that there's an exit moment, right? And that, like, you have a plan to exit. So that's going to be contingent on biofeedback. Once hunger, cravings, energy, mood, sleep is just in the gutter, it's time to go, right? And in fact, I like to take people out before we get to that place where they're just feeling like complete crap. And we pull out before that in order to preserve like mental and physical health. So you got to keep watching that biofeedback during the deficit for sure. Okay, so then we exit our deficit in a very methodical way. So basically, we're only going to allow ourselves to diet for probably 2 to 4 months. At that point, we probably will see biofeedback coming back not so great. And so we'll have to go ahead and exit at that point. And we're going to do that slowly and methodically. So this is where we reverse. This is where you may have heard of a reverse diet. We will slowly add back calories to your new assumed maintenance, because if you've lost significant amount of weight, let's say you lost the 20 pounds, you are a smaller body. You're going to require less energy coming in. So we will figure out what we assume your new maintenance will be, and we're going to slowly reverse ourselves there and make sure that we are doing that in a way that doesn't allow for weight gain, right? And that's where we do that methodically. And we keep an eye on measurements and scale and all that good stuff. So of course, biofeedback is still important, because before the diet, we were trying to improve biofeedback till it was at a good space. Then we go into the deficit. We know biofeedback is going to degrade during that time. It's just part of the process. And so now that we're reversing out, we would like to see biofeedback come back to a healthy space. So, biofeedback obviously becomes a huge piece of this whole puzzle. And then once we get to a good space, everything is looking good once again, and we're at a good maintenance, it's time to stay there for a significant amount of time. I like to have people stay there about 3 months before attempting another diet phase. So let's say I only lost 10 pounds when I went through this process the first time. Okay, I reverse. I allow my body to rest. I enjoy my new body, 10 pounds lighter. And then I go back in 3 months later and I do that again. Can I do that in a year? Absolutely. I think that is, I think that's doable for most people within a year. Granted, they take the time to do it right. And I think too, maybe hearing like all of that and also knowing there are timelines, right? I think the worst part is going into a deficit and like, when does it end? How does it end? Like, how do I get back to eating normally? Right. And so I think having timelines really helps a lot. I know that if I knew, okay, my diet is only going to be at most 4 months, great. I can put my mind to that and understand, okay, I've done the work to prepare myself. I'm going to get in, I'm going to be really intentional, and then I'm going to get out and it will end. And I have a plan on the back end to exit in a proper way and then hold on to the results that I got out of the whole process. So that is how I would plan out my year. And that's step by step what I would do. Obviously, if you were here at the beginning, the very first step I said was I would hire a coach. And this is why. That's a lot. Put that on a coach, have a coach walk you through that, have a coach watching your biofeedback, have a coach giving you, guidance through that whole process, because it can get tricky. Because like I tell my clients, never goes to plan, right? There's always things that kind of will pull us here and there. So having that person just with you, and it's their job to make sure you go through this process, is going to make it way easier on you. You just have to execute. So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope that was helpful. I think it might be super eye-opening, to see the whole process from start to finish. If you guys have questions, throw them in the comments below. I'll get back to you guys with those answers. But yeah, I hope that was helpful, especially if you have a goal of wanting to lose weight, to see what the full process actually looks like. And of course, you can always chat with me. I'm always happy to jump on a call if you have questions, and give you some guidance myself. So, all right, that's all I got for you guys today. Happy Monday. I will see you back here next Monday for our next training. Have a wonderful week, guys. I'll see you. Bye.